What's up, everybody? This is podcast number 1 with Sport Karate Radio. I am joined today by Mr. Corey. Corey, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Bobby?
Good. I am Bobby. Just a brief overview before we start, especially being with episode 1, our backgrounds in the martial arts. Corey, what have you done and how are you involved with sport martial arts?
Well, I currently own a school in Milwaukee, and I teach there pretty much every day. And I also compete both locally, nationally, and internationally, depending on the years, in NASCA and kind of local circuits going around WKC, stuff like that. So I stay pretty busy, stay out there, kind of stay involved, and do my best to do well at these events with such great, fantastic competitors.
So this is kind of like a Wisconsin episode number 1 here, as you're from Wisconsin, I'm from Wisconsin, and our special guest, Mr. Mike Welch, is from Wisconsin. This is going to be an awesome Wisconsin podcast to start us out here. We got some super awesome special guests coming up later that are not from Wisconsin, so it'll be a good show today especially. Like Corey said, he's from Wisconsin, and he has been competing for multiple years. I am also from Wisconsin and have been competing locally mainly for, I want to say, about 10 years. I have been competing locally and regionally. I've competed at the U.S. Open and everything between Wisconsin and Florida I have probably been to at least once or twice. So super excited to get this podcast going. Awesome host alongside of me, Mr. Corey. And without further ado, we're going to start this podcast off with some tournaments coming up. What can we expect in Washington, D.C.? Corey, what's coming up?
Well, in D.C., we have the U.S. Capitol Classics, which is a seasonal favorite running by Mr. Dennis Brown. It's a 6A NASCA event. It's happening on August 4th and 5th, and it's kind of the place to be for next month. And
Dennis Brown, like you said earlier when we were talking, he's just such a nice guy. Every time I see him on like a live stream or anything like that, he just seems super chill, just, a really, really nice guy.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy, really laid back, very knowledgeable, a great judge. Most divisions I've been in, he's one of my judges. And pretty much, if I think like the last 5 or 6 tournaments, he's been there. And yeah, he's always very approachable, can chat with you a little bit, and just runs a really nice ring with a good vibe to it. So I enjoy having him in front of me when I'm doing those forms.
That's awesome. And I know Dennis Brown makes it all throughout the U.S. to be at those tournaments to either help judge or help promote or whatever he can. So Washington, D.C., that's the place to be. Capitol Classics, August 4th and 5th. Make sure you're there if you're a sport karate competitor. And it's going to be a great time. Are you going to be there, Corey?
I cannot make this year's, unfortunately. I had actually on my little list of events here, I have going with a question mark and had to cross it off. I got other obligations. I was just at the U.S. Open last weekend, and unfortunately I have a business I need to be at for a little while here before I can run away again and do some more tournaments.
And speaking of the U.S. Open, we're going to talk to Mike Walsh a little bit later here about the U.S. Open and what happened. But, man, that U.S. Open, that is like the best of the best. That is where they go. If you're going to go to one karate tournament throughout your martial arts career, it's going to be the U.S. Open. And there was tons of live streams out there over last weekend. And holy cow, man, was it just an action-packed event. What'd you think of that? Did you watch any of the live streams?
I didn't watch any of the live streams, but I was there. And so it was the U.S. Open every year is kind of one of those. The energy is so different from some other events. You get the pull of, some of the best competitors across the U.S. definitely. So you get kind of your greats. You get Cole Presley and Reed and, Team Paul Mitchell and Hayabusa and some great fighting and great forms and just amazing, traditional and amazing XMA and just all these really great things. But then you also get this pull from different countries as well. So while I was there, there was a team from Jamaica, there was a team from Guatemala, there was a team from Brazil, there was a team from South Africa. I actually ran into a friend that I made last year at the U.S. Open, and he ran up to me. He's from South Africa, and he's like, "Corey!" And it's like, "Oh my gosh, you're back! Awesome!" And we had a big chat about that, and he hurt his knee or something. So I was talking to a guy from Germany. No, from South Africa, actually. But he's talking about the influence of traditional martial arts and how there's kind of two different mindsets. We had this whole conversation about traditional, super traditional practices, their styles, and, you know, what he thought on that. So it's just this really interesting mix of people and opinions and cultures and worldviews. You kind of slam it all together at Disney, which is its own special place.
And that U.S. Open is down in Orlando, Florida. So, I mean, even if you're not going to compete, you go there just to watch some of those competitors. If you get bored for whatever odd reason that may be, you can always just go to Disneyland. I mean, what's better than that? I mean, you can't go wrong at all. So, awesome. I'm super jealous that you got to go down to Florida last weekend. As you can see, I probably got a little bit of sunburn still from last weekend. I was out on the boat fishing up here in Wisconsin. So, probably both dealing with the heat yet. But moving on, we got our hot topics of the week. Corey, I'm going to give this to you, man.
Sure. So last weekend, we had the U.S. Open, as we said, at Coronado Springs Resort in Disneyland. And while we were there was there's a lot of amazing things that happened, but there's two that really kind of stood out to me. So on the Saturday night finals, which was the Night of Champions, we had two things that really popped. There was a new type of form that came out during finals. So something that no one had ever seen before. And this was, it was hyped up. And as soon as it was Cole Presley, actually, he stepped out and he had both a bow and 2 kamas.
Which has never happened in sport karate history ever. It's always been one weapon, correct?
As far as I know.
And that's crazy because when you go out there on stage or you go out there and compete, you either have like a pair of nunchucks or a pair of sticks or whatever you're competing with, you have a pair of. And this guy came out there with a pair of kamas, which are basically a pair of sticks with a big blade on the top, and a bow staff, which is basically, what would you describe a bow staff as, Corey?
Well, a bow staff is traditionally a 6-foot stick they use to carry water over their shoulders. And kind of the more extreme styles and with more tricks and stuff, it's more lightweight. And it's usually pretty glittery and shiny, and so you can see it spin in the air, and it kind of is that, eye-catching thing right there. So, and I'm gonna have to step back here. I think there have been double weapons before. There's been like fan and sword, and there's been like knife and chuck, and there's been stuff like that. But as far as I know, nobody's done 2 kamas with a bow. So when he was walking out to do his introduction, to do everything, as soon as he stepped on the floor, the whole place just exploded.
And you can just see kind of the look on his face, like, yeah, this is going to be crazy. Nobody has done this. You guys are in for a show. It was just, as soon as he walked out, I could see that this was going to be awesome.
Yeah, and it was great. I was right there, and I got to see him do the whole thing. It was, as always, he puts on a great performance. Cole Presley's been competing for a long time. He's a very innovative competitor. He does a lot of really cool things, and he put on a great show. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to take the win that night, but it was something brand new, kind of genre redefining. And I was kind of with him, well, not with him particularly, but I was in the end, he was talking about how it was something new. He wanted to try to be working it, and kind of he was going to keep working on it a little bit and move forward from there and see what he can do. So that was kind of one of the really big things that happened. And the other one was the same night. And as we know, Team Infinity, and we'll be talking to Mike Welch about this maybe a little bit later, but I'm sure he's talked about it a lot already this week. Team Infinity has been kind of the demo king of the last 7 years.
I'd say 7 to 8 years for sure. When you see those guys walk out on stage for demo competitions, you know that those guys are definitely the competitor to beat.
Yeah, and they're just tight, and they're synchronized, and they're innovative. And so they went on and they went up against Team Freestyle, and their team out, I believe, California. Please remember, random people of the world. And
I think they're from California. I'm not sure. I've been competing all before, so I think they made a new team on circuit.
Yep, been competing for a year or two, I've seen before, but yeah, they were, and they took it. They dethroned Infinity U.S. Open, which was their meet, and there was a lot of opinion about that. They both performances. They were very different performances, but they were both, like I said, amazing, and I was glad not to be on the judging panel for that event. So those are the 2 hot topics last week or so that I know about. We had Cole Presley with Weapons, which was, like I said, genre redefining, and we had Lucid Freestyle and the Team Synchro, which is unfortunate. And there's also the Maya conference out in Las Vegas this weekend? No, this past. Yep. And also they'll go Vegas Open, I believe. And I know a lot of cool things happen. I haven't been able to hear about them yet, so maybe next episode.
Yeah, in Vegas, especially this week with all the UFers and everything being out there, it's just an action-packed weekend. I'm sure if you're out in Vegas this past weekend here, it's just packed out. Seeing UFC fighters, some fighter of any sort, some sport karate guy, or anything. It's just, that's the place to be right now. Unfortunately, both you and I are both stuck, but that's the next best place to be.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, we have our first guest, Mr. Mike Welch, calling in right now. We're going to get to him and talk to him about sport karate in schools and what he does personally to get people in his schools to karate tournaments and how it benefits him, along with a couple of other things here. And hopefully talk with him about his Team Infinity against Team Freestyle loss at the U Open, the pinnacle of the sport karate tournament circuit. So here we go for Mike Walsh. It is that time. I am here with the one and only Mr. Infinity himself from the wonderful state of Wisconsin, Mr. Mike Welch. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for coming on. Totally appreciate it. It's kind of like a Wisconsin takeover with our first episode. But super pumped to have you on the show talking about a little bit about the U.S. Open and what happened there, as well as the big thing, sport karate in schools, and what you guys kind of do, because it seems like every karate tournament that, you know, is a big, good quality tournament, you always see an Infinity uniform there. So we'll hit on that. But first, I want to talk about the U.S. Open. You guys are like a bazillion-time world champion demo team that has been dethroned for the first time. And props to Team Freestyle. They had an awesome demo. What do you think about that? What happened?
Well, first of all, you already gave props. Congratulations to Freestyle. You know, the demo that they do is what they do it flawlessly. You know, they're very in sync. They're very, very tight. They got super strong hands. You know, I've gotten a lot of feedback from different people. You know, they actually aired ESPN last night, and I didn't watch it. We recorded it, but I had my Netflix shows to watch, and woke up today with like 100, you know, text messages and things like that. But ultimately, you know, 4 judges out of 7 gave it to them and not to us. So my message to the team when we go back is, you know, nobody got screwed because 4 judges gave it to them. We got to be better. We can always be better. And I use the analogy like a professional fighter. You don't want to leave it in the judge's hands. If you get the knockout, you win the fight, no doubt. So we didn't do enough to knock them out. So we got to come back. We got to hit the drawing board, work a little harder, and get better. You know, that's all we can do. You know, it's out of our hands from there.
Right. And it's funny that you bring that up because Dana White was just on talking about the fight with Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather, and he said that if Conor connects, he's probably going to win and get that knockout. But if it goes to the judge's decision, then yeah. So it's funny that you bring that up, but good point. And that was an awesome thing to watch. As soon as Team Freestyle came on and we started watching the live stream a little bit, we could kind of tell that it was going to be a showdown between the two of you guys. So regardless who won, it was awesome to watch. Great competition. So awesome job out there.
They've worked hard the last couple of years, and they continue to improve. This year at U.S. Open, it was really cool because that team demo division, it was big, and there were a lot of competitive teams. You know, it came down to just 2 of us on stage, but there were some good competitive teams. And, you know, talking to Mike Sawyer, Mike McCoy, the promoters of U.S. Open, they both, you know, or a lot of promoters, I should say, in NASCAR, they're both, you know, the consensus is why aren't there more teams out there? Used to be like, that was a glamour division, you know, and I think it's definitely huge for the spectators to see that division compete and grow. So it was nice. I hope it's a sign of more competition at more tournaments.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the more teams that are in there, it only brings up the whole competition level and pushes everybody. So, you know, that's going to be an awesome division, hopefully, within the next year or so. Hopefully some more teams get in there. But switching gears to sport karate, I mean, like I said before, you guys, it seems like every tournament being broadcasted or that everybody goes to, there's always at least one Infinity uniform there. And that's hard to do for a lot of schools, is to get people to tournaments and push their students to get in there and try it out and, you know, have a good experience and everything like that. And yet Infinity Martial Arts, throughout all your schools there, you guys seem to have no problem whatsoever pushing those students to get in there. And it seems like everybody's just having a blast when they're at the tournaments. What does Infinity Martial Arts do that you think other schools don't do and brings all of your students to all of these karate tournaments? What do you think?
So the biggest thing is just we've created a culture. I came up doing sport karate. You know, my dad and I both got into martial arts about the same time. He did a very traditional style, Chung Do Kwan, Taekwondo, and they were closed circuit. You know, they only do their own tournaments and things like that. And then he took me to a place that was a little bit more kid friendly, a little bit much more modern and Americanized style. And so Diamond Nationals, that's what did it for me. Going to the Diamond Nationals when I was 10 years old as like a green belt, you know, it fired me up. So as I grew as a martial artist and a competitor, I knew someday I was going to compete or teach and have my own schools, and that was going to be a part of our thing. So within our schools, we create the culture of competition. We host 2 of our own tournaments, Battle of Badger State, and then a big one, the Infinity National Championships in Wisconsin Dells, Kalahari in May. Be there.
Gotta love the Wisconsin Dells. You can't go wrong with anything that's being held there.
Yeah, of course not. And then there's some local tournaments around us too. So we teach our students how to compete. I think that there is a philosophy in our area and in our industry right now that 10 things, I've had a school owner say this exact thing to me, and he was a competitor too, which blows my mind, but he said 10 things can happen at a karate tournament and 9 of them are bad. And I think to myself, I'm like, that's not what we teach. That's not what we teach, you know. Most of our students, they don't get first place, you know. A lot of them don't. Our purple belts have just as much experience as any other purple belt at any other school. Our black belts, it's a different story because, you know, we have some competitive black belts. But we create the culture. We talk about the benefits of competition, and we get people involved. And we go to places that we know are going to be good. So our families, I got to protect the school so our families have a good time and a good experience. So that's really why you know, where it starts. One thing that Infinity also has, you know, just to clarify, so we have 6 schools and a ton of competitors, and some of our national competitors are within our 4 walls. That's where we started. But I also pick some kids up now. You know, I sponsor, you know, Haley Glass from Orlando, the K-Kick girls from Colorado. We got some Canadians. So they also help represent our name and our logo and stuff. But it is within our programs.
That's cool that you're sponsoring all those people and everything too, outside of your school in general. The thing with sport karate that I think kind of is the gray area is the sport itself. Sport karate is based off of something that wasn't intended to be a sport. It was kind of like a self-defense type thing or a physical fitness type thing. I mean, people get into it for different reasons. You don't see a whole lot of people get into martial arts to become involved in sport martial arts at the beginning. And I think that's where that gray area is, because we still have a lot of schools out there right now that are, they don't want to send kids to tournaments and stuff like that. They more focus on like the self-defense aspect or different areas of traditional martial arts. So if you look at the sport in general, it's kind of hard for those schools to say, all right, we're going to transition to from traditional martial arts, teaching you self-defense, into the sport side of things. And it can be kind of tricky, and I don't think really a whole lot of people understand, if they're a school owner or an instructor, how to kind of do that. And I think that's kind of the gray area.
Well, I think, you know, tournaments, sport karate doesn't have to be flash kicks and butterfly twists and throwing your bow staffs. You know, NASCA is very much taking the traditional style. Back in the day, some of my guys that I thought were phenomenal, like Will Cornell and John Hsu, Suzanne Wankett, They were traditional, but they modified their forms. Who was the first guy? Was it Charlie Lee or John Chung or somebody to add music and add a backflip to a traditional form? But now NASCA has taken, I think, the traditional forms, not traditional weapons, which I'd like to see go that way, but it's very authentic and competitive. It's not modifying the traditional stuff. So you don't have to do a backflip to compete and do sport karate and be competitive. Now, on the flip side, when kids see us in the parade or at a demonstration and my, 10-year-old red belts, they can do the butterfly kicks and the aerials and they are throwing their bow staffs and the weapons are flashy. We teach Chung Mu and Page 7. We teach them traditional karate. There's a huge emphasis on martial art, like practical martial arts in our curriculum, and we've added sport karate to it. So when we do the flashy stuff, kids love it. They eat it up. So I think that there's a retention tool that can be used with it. We have a program that we use, and it definitely keeps our teenage kids and our black belts involved, so we don't lose them at a certain time. It's a team atmosphere, and it's a sport karate atmosphere. Some of them don't even compete. Hyper is the Hyper program, I think, is unbelievable. So if there's a traditional school out there that can go outside their comfort zone, Hyper's a program to use. But there's also so many people who are so close-minded that, their way's the only way. My style's the only style. All you do, I'm going to catch flack for this, man, but I'm going to say it. My flash kick is just as practical as somebody's cat stance double knife hand. I can find just as much as an application as any traditional form, is my belief. 90% of martial arts curriculum probably isn't practical. Your fighting stance, your two straight punches, and a couple of kicks, that's what works in a real fight. So when a traditional stylist says, it's not martial art, blah, 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 I mean, I bite my tongue and I let them think what they want. But there's so much more out there. And I think coming back to competition again, if you don't let your students see outside of your own four walls, they'll never get better than whoever your best is. And in fact, they won't get better as good as them. You gotta get exposed to what else is out there. And my dad and my instructors and my coaches, it's a testimony to where I am. I'd never be who I was without competition, without different styles and influences.
Right. And, even if you look at, like the world of mixed martial arts, which is something different than sport karate, if you go into the gym, you're working out and everything, it's a good workout and, it's cool and everything to be called an MMA fighter, but you're really not going to get that much better unless you actually get into the ring and get a fight or something like that. It just makes you so much better, and especially if you lose, hopefully you take a lot away from that loss, and it only makes you a little bit better. It's the same thing with basketball. It's the same thing with football and everything like that. You don't just throw passes and call yourself an NFL player. You got to get in there. You got to throw the ball. You got to get into games. You lose. It happens. And you got to learn from it.
Learn how to lose with humility. So as a martial arts instructor, you know this, we try to teach our kids respect and humility and integrity. Competition can teach all of those things. It does, in fact. I think that's why martial arts is better than, soccer and basketball and hockey. They can teach those things, but they're not bringing it to the forefront of the classroom like we do as martial artists. So now we go to competition with the right attitude. Man, the character that you can build, the respect that you can build for yourself, the confidence that you build to get out of your comfort zone, spar against an opponent that you've never met, win or lose, there's so much value to that. You produce better black belts, you produce better leaders in your community. I think that's a good point.
And one thing that I do want to mention, like you were talking about earlier, sport karate, I think when people hear that, they're thinking like the flashy kicks and, the cool weapons, two swords and, all that kind of thing. But, like you said before, it's also traditional. And that's another thing that makes this sport so unique. You can go back to the roots of martial arts and see somebody in sport karate doing those type of routines and moves and stuff. And then you can look across the room and see a guy doing a backflip and doing flips and doing all sorts of cool stuff with weapons.
Some of the best fighters out there will still do traditional forms. You know, some of the best point fighters. Anthony Merrick's, he point fights competitively, and then he gets into the men's Korean division, and again, he's super competitive. Sport karate has its practical side too. In the UFC anyway, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Michael Page Venom, Sage Northcutt, those guys all point fight, probably a more traditional base first, a taekwondo or karate base, then point fighting, and now it's serving a purpose in UFC.
Definitely. I think it'll be interesting to see sport karate fighters making that transition into full contact fighting or even kickboxing or anything like that. Like you mentioned, Sage Northcutt and Stephen Thompson.
Raymond's doing the full contact stuff, and he's winning. I know Ross Levine is involved in it. Chris Walker's doing some MMA, so it's out there. I mean, it's an avenue, and even that, UFC is sport karate. Kickboxing is sport. If you're competing in the martial arts, that's a sport, right? So even a guy who, some of our schools, they do traditional closed circuits or inter-school tournaments, but they knock on sport karate. They're doing it,
They're kind of beating themselves up when they say that.
Yeah, I think some guys. So look, we don't sign students up because we go to tournaments. Our school and our karate tournaments are so different. Nobody cares how many trophies we've ever won. All they want to know is how we can help their child. And then after that, they're part of our team, and they're like, yeah, they're Team Infinity, they're on board. But the general public, that's not what we're doing, So, and we don't try to steal people's students. Like I said before, a blue belt at all of our surrounding schools, some we have good relationships with, some we don't. But their blue belts and our blue belts, they've been training for the same amount of time. They're almost doing the same forms. At that point, it's a fair game. I don't know where else I want to go with that. It's a fair game. I'd like to see more people not be afraid to put their students out there, support each other's tournaments,
Definitely. And, that's what has to happen in order for this sport to grow into something bigger and better, and it just helps everybody out that's going to a tournament. So, I want to end this here because I know we got stuff to do, but I just want to thank you for being on the show and appreciate everything that you're doing for Sport Karate. Make sure you guys all check out InfinityNationalChampionships.com. Your tournament is in May in the Wisconsin Dells. What is that, 11th and 12th of May?
Man, I'm so bad that I don't know it offhand, but that sounds right. So it's always over Mother's Day weekend. It's at the Kalahari. So there's an indoor water park. You can go surfing. There's water slides. There's a bowling alley. There's rope courses. There's an arcade. So there's a lot of cool stuff. We give cash prizes for fighters, team fights. We have junior open weight divisions this year. This year we are not sanctioned. We have been in NBL in the past. And the people in the NBL have been great. We're just not sure if the NBL rules and tournaments is right for our area. So yeah, come on out, step up, check out our website, check out our Facebook page.
Cool. And are you guys doing a night show at your tournament too?
Our night show is awesome. So here again, I can always get to speak. I know there's some outspoken guys in the martial arts that have really great things to say. Our night show is under 2 hours. Awesome. You jam pack it. We don't do a lot of awards. There's no speeches or anything like that. Just a lot of high action, good fights, good forms, good competition, and then you get to enjoy the rest of the resort. So, yeah, we have a great night show.
Cool. And for those of you that don't know what the night show is, basically what it is taking all of the winners throughout the entire weekend, putting them on a stage for you to watch, and there's music and stuff going on, and you just sit there like it's an NBA game or a football game or something, and you just hang out with everybody and you watch it. So if you're in the Dells that weekend, Mother's Day weekend 2018, get tickets, man. It's going to be an awesome time. All those night shows are just fantastic. You can sit there, and it doesn't matter if you're in karate, traditional karate, sport karate, never seen a karate move in your entire life before. Just go there. I mean, date night, it would work out perfect. Hanging out with your guys, something different. Go there and hang out and watch what's going on. it's just an awesome experience.
Yep.
Cool. Thank you, sir, for coming on the show. Definitely appreciate it. Good luck with everything, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I'd love to be back.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
And that's going to wrap up our first episode of Sport Karate Radio. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. Be sure to check back next week as our special guest, Mr. Adam Kiefer from Level Up Music, stops in and joins the show. And also be sure to check back to see Mike Welsh's Minute of Fury video, and we'll explain that when we get that next week. Also, don't forget to check out Infinity National Championships online at infinitymartialartschampionships.com. Thanks again, guys, for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week.